to this episode of Behind the Curtain. And today, we're diving into a local production of a show that you might not have heard of before. Maybe you have, but you haven't been able to see it live, right? So a great opportunity in the Capital Region to see the show Next to Normal. And I'm joined now by some very special guests that are a big part of bringing this story to life. With me, we have Adrian Parker, who plays Diana Goodman, Kason Mulderry, who plays Gabe Goodman. We have Aaliyah Jane Peel and Sean T. Baldwin, who are co-directing the production. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Next to Normal, I have to say, first of all, I'm a big fan. But I'm one of those people that hasn't seen it live yet. You know, I have listened to the soundtrack plenty of times. I stalk YouTube. You know, I try to find clips. But it's got to be a really harrowing thing to see play out in front of you, and especially in a theater as small as the Seymour 10, because it's just such an intimate setting. So first start by talking to me about that. For those who don't know, go into the subject matter of the show a little bit, and then why you think this venue is the right fit.
Well, I can start on that because I am also executive director of the theater.
Okay.
So when we have a small committee that was choosing our shows for Eclectics this year and talking about the different options, and something I think that really struck everyone deciding on why this was a good show to put in our theater is how intimate the show itself is. It's a very actor-centric story, you know, that's mainly, while there's tech elements that can really help bring it to life, it's centered around the intimacy of the characters and and their connections with one another. So I think that from the get-go, besides the fabulous music and obviously the really important themes that go on in this story, I think the fact that it centers on human connection is a big part of why it works in an intimate space.
Absolutely,
yeah.
And it won a Pulitzer Prize in like 2010, but I would say that today the themes are just as relevant. Would you agree? And talk about some of those themes.
Absolutely. I think that something that Next Normal does a very good job of showing are the conversations that we don't have but we should, because everybody's life at some point is touched by mental illness, grief, feelings of insecurity. And what we never really see, not in the media anyway, are how those play out, not in real time, but in a realistic way. So I think when folks come to see the show, to some extent, it's going to be, you know, a very heavy watch, but at the same time, it's going to be a very realistic depiction of, you know, what happens when, you know, the rubber hits the road when somebody is experiencing a difficult time with their mental health in their life, and basically the ripple effect that that has on their family as well.
And the main unraveling that we watch in Next to Normal is of Diana. So Adrian, talk to me a little bit about what it's been like tapping into that character.
So trying to keep the character as real as possible and not playing into that stereotype that we see in media for the most part. I think a lot of people will come into the show expecting that, but I wanted it to be raw and real and kind of live in that emotion with her. And a big part of that was doing research, watching documentaries, talking to some people that have experienced bipolar disorder or family members of, so that you can kind of grasp how people would be reacting in real time.
Yeah, that's really important, especially because people who are seeing this show, because it's so grounded in reality, will probably feel some sort of connection to it. They know someone who's been through something similar, not just from Diana's perspective, but from the perspectives of her children. So talk to me a little bit about what it's like to play one of Adrian's kids in this show.
It's definitely, it's very chaotic, I would say. Like, having the different dynamics amongst how like Gabe and then Natalie, the daughter, how their characters are very drastically different. And on top of that, it's very clear that it's like Natalie's got really bad mommy issues, but Gabe's got really bad daddy issues. And it's definitely one of those of like trying to work with the dynamic of trying to figure out how to interact with each other on top of maintaining the fact that there is such like, I don't want to say disaster, but kind of disaster amongst it, as well as like you're watching Diana kind of devolve into her mental illness, and then you're watching how Dan is trying to like hold it together, but then Natalie on top of it is also trying to hold it together, and Gabe's like there being like not the most helpful of children.
Yeah, he's adding a little bit of fuel to the fire. Coming up on Behind the Curtain, we'll learn more about the opportunities available for local actors at Steamer 10 Theater. I wanted to also talk about the fact that because the cast is smaller, right, and you're spending a lot of time doing character work together, do you find that you're encountering unique challenges with this show that you might otherwise not if it were a show with big production numbers, a big ensemble? Like, what kinds of challenges, but also maybe benefits come from having a smaller cast and crew?
Well, I can at least throw something out there that it's an interesting but fun challenge as directors, because the staging becomes really important. There's a few moments in the show where characters or actors become, I guess, like an idea rather than just their characters. So there's like a number where we kind of represent the mental health field as a whole. And there's 2 actors specifically that have to go back and forth between being that representation and then also being their characters as we switch back and forth in scenes. So it's a really interesting but exciting challenge to figure out how we make that flow cohesively and how we make sure that that story's told but without gaps. So, and they're all doing an excellent job with it, but it's definitely, it's the opposite in some ways of a jigsaw puzzle, but it's also how do we keep these molecules flowing? Right. So I think that's kind of how I see it, at least, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Please.
I would also say that it's a very nice experience to have a smaller group because you can be like more intimate with each other, of getting to know each other, and it's also kind of one of those working with the aspect of, I know that in theater a lot, sometimes it can be hard to separate like the character from the person. It's like if you're friends with somebody and something horrible happens to their character, you have to separate that. But I know sometimes people connect that. And I think with a small show like this, especially with this, it's very important to be close to one another and be able to talk it out. Like the cast and directors, we've had multiple conversations about the topics of this show and how we would, like Aaliyah had said, of like the depictions of mental health into also being your character. And it's just like trying to figure out that medium ground where everything aligns together. But on top of that, like knowing that you're not the same person as your character at the same time. I definitely think having a smaller group, it makes it very much closer knit, and it definitely makes it, I feel like makes it a little bit easier to discuss topics of this sort and to be able to work through them, but also help each other a lot more, of being like, hey, here's something that I've contemplated that maybe you don't see your character as, but sometimes it can spark an idea in that actor being like, oh my God, that's so like, I didn't even think about that. You're so correct.
Right.
Yeah, and on top of that, and Aaliyah would probably agree with this, is that part of the joy of directing is giving talented people their chance to shine. So there really are no small parts, no weak links in this cast. You know, we got so lucky with the people that we have. So, you know, having such a small cast of 6 people really does give them all an opportunity to strut their stuff throughout the entirety of the show. So there's really no moment in which anybody is a wallflower. And there's so few shows like that, let alone one with so few people. So, you know, it's very exciting to be able to present that to everyone as well.
We touched a little bit on this off camera, but we were talking about how this is part of an eclectic series of shows. So why don't you just talk a little bit about what that means and some of the other kinds of opportunities there are for people to go to Steamer 10 and bring the kids to something that might be more age appropriate. Talk about the other offerings, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So originally, the founder of the theater kind of named the eclectic series with with the purpose of getting different types of venues in the space. We typically do like a February vacation days where we'll just kind of gig in different artists from different areas too. So we have kind of that branch off of our eclectic series that happens, but typically within the eclectic series, we're picking musicals that are either, I don't want to say not done often, but that are for kind of like the purpose of the things that are not spoken on stage all the time. So, you know, we have had a range of different shows. Ride the Cyclone was one that when I was first gearing up to take over this position, we were doing as well, and that's also where we worked together. And then also Spelling Bee, so it's kind of like, Spelling Bee was kind of, you know, that song for the nerds and the geeks out there. So it's kind of the a purpose of for underrepresented as far as we can make it. But then we also have that sort of mission carry through with our what we call CAST program. It's Creative Arts at Steamer 10. So our main mission at the theater is to produce shows that are for student programming. And so we have a really great cohort right now working on this show called Alice versus Wonderland, and it's kind of this teenage, you know, spin on the classic tale where she has kind of an identity crisis, and we have a very an open and diverse set of students in the sense of we have students from many different backgrounds, many different, like, you know, levels of neurodivergence, different identities. So it's really exciting to have a safe space for all of these kids. And I think they really enjoy that too. So they kind of support each other in that way. And yeah, so that's a big part of what we do. Eclectic's, you know, kind of a great way to amplify that mission through the community and adulthood. We offer some free film series for the area, and we partner up with Theater Voices that does some stage readings, and yeah, we have a lot going on.
Coming up on Behind the Curtain, everything you need to know to plan a night out at the theater to see Next to Normal at Steamer 10. The logistics, when and where, how do people get tickets, what are the different opportunities to catch this show?
So the dates are January 19th through the 18th, and for our eclectic series specifically, our performances are held Fridays and Saturdays at 7 p.m. And then Sundays at 3. So the theater address is 500 Western Avenue, and it's called Steamer 10 Theater, and we will have, well, we already have tickets live for people to purchase ahead of time. They can also purchase them at the door, but we strongly recommend you go to the website, and that's steamer10.org, and it's spelled, you know, 10,
right,
and then /events. So when you Google that, it'll bring you right to all of our events. So you just scroll down 1 or 2, and you're gonna see Next to Normal there. So
Great. Well, break legs. We're very excited for all of you. Congratulations on, you know, taking on such a heavy show, and we wish you the best of luck. We appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you for watching Behind the Curtain. If you have a story idea that highlights the local theater scene, please email me, gbruno@news10.com. See you next time.